Ladies and gentlemen, from the College of Creative Arts, Dinah Vincent presents Dressmaking, How a Practice Made Girls, New Zealand's 1940s to 1960s. A round of applause for Dinah.
These pictures evoke dressmaking in New Zealand in the mid-20th century, a practice understood as commonplace but overlooked as domestic and mundane. I looked to classic movies for a way to frame my question. Walt Disney's Cinderella, remember her? She remakes her mother's gown. Maria from The Sound of Music turns curtains into play clothes for the Von Trapp children. Scarlett O'Hara in that dress from the Green Velvet Drapes. But these movies typify a reductive view of dressmaking as something that came naturally to girls who used it to make garments out of nothing in the twinkling of an eye. Stitching itself only gets screen time when done by mice and birds and set to music in Cinderella. Which made me wonder, what did dressmaking mean in New Zealand in real life in that time, done by human hands, maybe those of your mother or grandmother? I had to create a theoretical framework calling on feminist, sociological and historical thinking, weaving in material culture and object studies. The main fabric of my research is interviews with women who grew up in the period framed by those movies, the 1940s to 1960s. Dressmaking connected them to their female relatives. They saw garments cut out on the floor and made at the tables of their homes. As girls, they seldom had purchased clothing, wore hand-me-downs, didn't have much choice. They remember forbidden scissors, the rhythm of treadle machines and the excitement of best dresses. Yet few were systematically taught at home. They learned from observation and imitation. School dressmaking classes are my lining layer because all girls had some sewing at primary school, although not all learnt. They remember discipline, compulsion and aprons in classrooms from which boys were banished, maybe to do extra maths. Girls could do sewing for school certificate exams. Doing so suggested accepting their destiny as a wife and mother or perhaps a school sewing teacher. Women had kept school sewing projects, tangible evidence of techniques and touchstones for memory. My trimmings come from magazines and newspapers. They encourage the practice as a way of demonstrating thrift, good taste and domestic prowess. They associate it with modernity, emphasising innovation. Dressmaking permeated the lives of practitioners. When it was no longer an economic necessity, it was a means of comfort, self-expression and creativity. The movies showed me what female characters made themselves look like using dressmaking. I went between the scenes in real life and found a rich picture of what dressmaking made girls.
Well, I for one cannot wait to read that. Judges.
Dinah, thank you. Firstly, it's great to see your college represented this evening. I think that's just fantastic. And thank you for covering an era, the 1940s to 1960s. I, unlike my fellow judges, was not part of that particular era. But can I just acknowledge the humour that you've presented this evening for something that I think potentially is easy to have been taken for granted. What you've identified is that to inform your research, you've used a number of different disciplines to complement that. But in particular, the focus on the qualitative nature of your research in terms of interviews with women of the era rather than that quantitative approach. So well done, and thank you for informing us all this evening.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dinah. I was part of that era. I think it's important to understand that actually there was a preface to it as well, because the aftermath of the Depression was still strongly working when I was born into this world. And then, of course, the World War II had a very big impact on New Zealand in a way that we still haven't fully comprehended. But I would like to just support my colleague in his observations, but also commend you for trying to work out an explanation for just the way the womanhood of New Zealand was shaped by those social processes that were operating on them in a way that was not always in their best interests. Thank you very much.
Is that your mum? That was your mum up in the bottom corner. So, ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for Dinah Vincent. Fantastic piece of research.